The nun is back. She's too nun, too furious. You thought we'd gotten rid of her, but no. And the great Bibbs is here to help me review The Nun II, Roman numeral 2, to make it seem more ominous, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. If you've not subscribed yet, we'd love to have you because we'll do all the important artsy, awardsy stuff in the fall.
Classy stuff that makes you look good. Yeah.
Right. But here is like The Nun 2 is coming out. You're curious. I know you are. It's part of the Conjuverse. We follow the Conjuverse around here. So come hang out with us. But first, Bibbs, what is The Nun 2 about?
What did you see? I saw a nun.
The Nun II. It's the sequel to The Nun and the prequel to most of the other films in the Conjuring series. You may remember that in The Conjuring 2, there was a really scary nun. And then in The Nun, we found out that the origin of the nun is they're a really scary nun. There's a lot of mythology. Most of it doesn't make a lot of sense. But they thought they defeated the nun. Taissa Farmiga literally spit the blood of Jesus Christ on the nun's face. An ending they ripped off from another better movie, Tales from the Crypt Presents Demon Knight. And the nun was like, oh no, Jesus blood, my one weakness, the only thing that can kill a nun. And so it looked like everything is okay, but it turns out the nun possessed a character from that movie. That character is back. He's been wandering throughout Europe, and all throughout Europe, clergy people have been murdered in elaborate and ridiculous ways. And now Taissa Farmiga is brought back into the fold. She plays Sister Irene. Sister Irene has to come back and kick the nun's butt. Later, because most of the movie is set at a boarding school where the nun occasionally does scary nun stuff, and we're just waiting for Taissa Farmiga to show up and get the job done. We'll get there. There will be a big showdown. Is it worth it? I have opinions.
Apparently, it's not worth it, according to you. So I did not like the first Nun. Nun 1 was not good for me. When I reviewed it for Roger Ebert, which I totally forgot I had even done, I had to go back and look at it. I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote that. That wasn't half bad. But in Nun 1, I compared it to the Minions movie, right? Where like in the Despicable Me movies, like you get little bits of Minion and they're great in small doses, but when you give them their own whole movie, it's like there's not a whole lot there. This is true with the Nun. Like just the quick little blips of the Nun in the Conjuverse were terrifying, startling. Bonnie Aarons is so chilling, like just has that presence, but then like a whole movie of the Nun is like too much Nun. But it did really well. So now we got
the Conjuring movies. They keep introducing like a new monster with every movie, and they're like, "Hey, we could build a whole movie around that monster. Do we have enough material?" Usually, no. I think like the Annabelle creation was pretty good, and I liked Annabelle Comes Home because it was like this whole like menagerie of haunted objects that each had their own like creepy moment. But yeah, you would think that after they built up the Nun, that they would have something. I'll say this for the first one. It's really atmospheric, like it's got this old, really gothic-y kind of look to it, and I like that. And even though it was aggressively silly, it was at least energetic. Like I didn't get bored. I wasn't terribly interested, but I wasn't bored. The Nun 2 bored me a lot of the time. And I feel weird about this. And you bring me on for the horror movies, and I think people think I'm a horror guy. I am a horror guy. In fact, a lot of the times when we go to a press screening, I emerge from the movie thinking, I just saw a pretty good horror movie. And then a lot of the people around me are saying how much they hated it. I'm like, did we see the same film? And that's kind of me. I have an affection for the genre, and I have a different idea of what works and what doesn't. And I emerged from The Nun 2 feeling like I've betrayed my own principles. Like, oh, I'm going to like, oh, why? I should have liked this more. Like, this is kind of more my jam. But I found this movie really frustrating. It's about a killer nun, and it has no interest whatsoever in exploring all of the scary things that come with our obsession with organized religion, Catholicism. It doesn't mind that for anything. It's just a haunted boarding school movie for most of it. And that all the actual material in there is really thin. Not a lot happens. So it's basically just a delivery system for jump scares. And most of the jump scares don't even really work that well. So just really fell flat for me.
I actually like this better than the first Nun, though, in terms of its atmosphere, in terms of its mood, and then eventually there is some emotional groundedness that the first one lacked. But you're right, it gets predictable in that you know that if you see an abandoned chapel, a dark staircase, an empty hallway, eventually you're going to get,
Yeah.
the Nun. There she is. And like at first that was creepy, and then it's diminishing returns. And I realize this is true with like Freddy Krueger or Jason or Michael Myers, any movie where like, there's like a singular predatory force, you know they're coming, right? And it's a matter of how does that tension play out.
And in those franchises that we're talking about, what happens over time is that what is initially scary and you're on the side of the protagonist who are trying not to be killed, familiarity, it doesn't really breed contempt, it breeds family. We start having this weird connection to the killers, to the monsters in these series, and maybe we find them sympathetic, maybe we don't, but we're here to see the monster return, not the people that the monster is trying to kill. And so those movies eventually become more and more about enjoying the mayhem a lot of the time. And sometimes they go back and try to rekindle the initial fear element, but often that's what happens here. The Conjuring movies are very adamantly against that. They do not want us to sympathize with Valak. They think Valak is going to be super scary always and forever, but they're actually not doing a lot of things that makes that work very well, and it's getting a little monotonous. One of the weird things about the Conjuring movies is that they're full of monsters, but the monsters don't have a lot of rules that apply to them. And that might sound like I'm being very rigid, that you have to have rules in order to be a horror movie. You don't, but the longer you go without them, the more you realize that it doesn't matter what happens.
Right,
Because,
anything can happen. And where's the tension come from then, right?
Yeah, like the nun shows up, and it's like, oh no, the nun has shown up. Do we hide? She literally just teleported to another city a second ago. Like, hiding isn't going to do anything. There's a wonderful scene where Storm Reid plays this new, like, novice nun who joins Taissa Farmiga on her journey. And not knowing what else to do, because it's not like, oh, holy water helps or something. She just jumps on it.
Right.
It's like Ray Stantz at the beginning of Ghostbusters. Get her! Like, she just jumps on its back. And it's like, I know that won't work, but I also know that nothing works. And so we're just waiting until the movie decides the story is over. We're not actually waiting for a problem to be solved, or even, frankly, a theme to be explored, because other than Storm Reid saying, yeah, I don't know if I believe in miracles, there's nothing actually going on in the movie. There's like nothing actually like happening. Horror movies are about stuff. They're exploring our anxieties and the things that frighten us. The Nun II is weirdly about very much nothing. Like, there's nothing about it that's like, I'm trying to get under your skin because I know what you're really scared of is nuns, but I don't know why. So I'm just going to throw nuns at you.
But I do, like you mentioned Storm Reid, I do like that connection between her and Taissa Farmiga. I want to see the two of them like globetrotting and throughout Europe and like beating evil. That would be fun. I like Taissa Farmiga a lot because she has the same thing that her sister Vera Farmiga has, which is a steeliness and a groundedness. And when stuff is getting silly all around her and maybe a little inconsistent, she's there to be our anchor, and she's always watchable and always interesting. So
I think she's fantastic.
Like she's got that.
She's anchoring this movie.
There's a lot going for it here and there.
More than anyone else could. Like, I think she's doing admirable work. I just wish the movie was meeting her at that level.
I like the misty, gloomy streets of France. There's a cool thing that happens at a newsstand. And you know it's coming, but the way that builds, I thought was quite effective. Why
are the magazines out? I don't think Valak did that. Because
the nun is an avid reader. The nun has many interests. I'm not just a nun.
I don't even understand the nun's interest. It's silly, but I at least found it entertaining in the last 20 to 30 minutes. But it's nearly 2 hours. And waiting to get to that point, I just found it just really subpar. It's not the worst film in the franchise.
No.
But that's not saying a lot. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm such a stick in the mud this week. I feel like
what's your number?
I'm gonna be generous here, and I'm gonna give it a 4.
Okay, I'm gonna say 6.
Okay,
all right.
So the Nun II,
not a whole lot coming out. It's averagely average. There's not a whole lot coming out this week. You know, if you're gonna see this or My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, I'm thinking this is better. Thanks, Bibbs. Good to see you always.
Thank you.